Next up is 1B, Councilmember Meyering.
1B is a list of bills that are being approved for payment by the city. Procedure used to be that when a council member asked for a copy of a bill, it was provided, and there was a complaint by the council member as to excessive hourly rates. And after that, the procedure was changed, so the council member will not be given a copy of the bill. That's a retrogression in public policy and open government. Anytime an elected council member wants to get a copy of a bill, it should be provided. I'll be voting no.
Okay. At this point, I will open the public hearing. Maria, did you want to speak on this one or on 1D? Because you have both written down. D. Okay. I do have one speaker card, Terry Fowler.
Good evening, all. For 2.5 years, Councilmember Meyering has complained at almost every meeting that he cannot get copies of invoices for outside legal work, even though this would violate city policy. He told me that he wanted copies sent to him because it was more convenient for him than coming to City Hall to see the bills. Serving on the council requires many inconveniences. This would seem to be one of the more minor ones. Several council members have indicated they do not find this practice overly inconvenient. Given that Councilmember Meyering has twice been officially reprimanded by city attorneys for revealing closed session and confidential information, it should be clear to rational people that the current policy is well-founded. Councilmember Meyering apparently once received a copy of a legal bill due to a clerical error, and now he constantly asserts that this is standard policy. It's like going into a Starbucks and accidentally not getting charged for a cup of coffee and then returning at a later time and demanding free coffee because it must be standard policy. When a Sunnyvale citizen pointed out that Councilmember Meyering had received $64,000 in compensation, Councilman Meyering responded that the citizen made an outright false statement, that he never drew $64,000 in salary. The speaker referred to total compensation, not just salary, as the San Jose Metro pointed out in its news article. This feeble attempt to confuse the issue is unworthy of a council member, but standard practice for a lawyer such as Perry Mason. If we were to believe Councilmember Meyering, there certainly is an epidemic of deliberate, bald-faced lying. Multiple citizens, multiple city staffers, and multiple city council members. I've been told that elected officials have an immunity to defamation lawsuits and are free to spew false charges against anyone and everyone without the legal consequences that regular citizens would face. As Joseph Welch once said to Senator Joseph McCarthy, an elected official who spent most of his time making false accusations, have you no sense of decency? I believe most people are as frustrated as I am, as each week we waste valuable time listening to yet another recitation of his complaints. What is the point of this endless nonsense? What is driving this constant lament for copies? I ask myself, why would a lawyer such as Councilmember Meyering want physical copies of the city's legal bills? Not being a lawyer, I will not conjecture as to what advantage this might provide, but I can see no useful purpose for this incessant harangue.
I do need to make one correction. Councilmember Meyering did not receive copies of the invoice as a clerical error. It was long-standing practice to not provide them. It was provided to him as an exception, and then the exception was discontinued after that one time.
Super. Thanks for the clarification.
Councilmember Meyering.
Yeah, there's a couple of errors there. First of all, Mr. Fowler has a track record of coming to city council meetings and making false statements about council members. The statement by Mr. Griffith that there was an exception is a false statement. It was a policy when a council member asked for a copy of the bill, it was provided. That's how there's oversight. And when the council member complained, then the policy was changed. So I also never told the individual, Mr. Fowler, that I didn't want to come to City Hall. So there's the multiple fabrications in Mr. Fowler's little speech, which he read. And this is orchestrated and organized by the city council majority. They have a problem with someone speaking off the song sheet with regard to what their policies are. Many of the council members took money from council members who took money from the downtown developer. There was an agreement to delete the requirements of the developer purchase a project performance
I'm
bond.
sorry, can you bring it back to 1B, please?
And this is why Mr. Griffith wants to interrupt, because there was a 3-minute smear with a script that he produced to prevent a person from explaining what the facts are. So the downtown developer stopped working on the projects, and council members then voted not to enforce the penalties against their donor. Council members have voted repeatedly to fund their own pay raises and lifetime retirement and medical reimbursement while closing the homeless shelter, claiming there wasn't enough money. Council members say, well, if you don't want the pay raise, just don't take it. But that's like telling somebody who says there should be a law against stealing, only you don't steal. You don't tell us we need a law against stealing. So council members have taken campaign money from city employees, then approved substantial salary increases for those employees while selling Rainier Park land, saying city doesn't have enough money. Santa Clara County District Attorney intervened when council members falsely claimed that retroactive pay raises they approved were confidential. Statement again by Mr. Fowler, and this is part of his track record, that there was confidential information released is patently false. Council members took money from the garbage company and then approved an additional $1.5 million payment to that company in the middle of a contract period. That resulted in large rate increases for Sunnyvale residents, including seniors. Then council members denied that they took money from the garbage company, and research showed that that was a false statement. So we have a situation here where we have gross immaturity and false statements being made by a parade of a tiny group of individuals to the lectern on every council meeting, and then interruptions by Mr. Griffith as to whether or not there can be a response. This is a poor way to run any organization. Nothing on the agenda tonight about the downtown development project. Nothing on the agenda about how we're going to solve the homeless problem. In fact, there's false statements being made at the homeless shelter in Sunnyvale on Sunnyvale-owned property in a Sunnyvale-owned building was done by a different government agency. So we need to focus on the issues that affect taxpayers, and when council members have a proxy come up to the microphone and give a list of incorrect statements, that shows how grossly immature the group is, the majority. Well, the majority that we should be looking at are Sunnyvale residents.
Well, I certainly agree we need to focus on the issues, which is why I attempt to stick to the agenda that's actually been published. Councilmember Meyering, the original situation that happened with the bills was that you requested them, and the city attorney explained to you that it was not normally provided, but that he was willing to provide it as a one-time exception, and then after that he discontinued it. He provided this in writing to you and to the rest of us. Unfortunately, I've tried multiple times to make this information public, but it was part of a confidential attorney-client document, and 3 different city attorneys have prevented me from doing so. I still have the email on my laptop right now. After this meeting, if you would like, I would be happy to show it to you and to read it to you in the presence of the city attorney to clarify this. Just ask me and I'd be happy to do so. Otherwise, I'm ready to bring it to the vote.
I would just like to add my apologies to everyone present.
Point of order,
My
Mr.
thanks.
It's not supposed to be a dialogue back and forth.
Right, there's
I
not
think
supposed to be a dialogue. Thank you very much.
And there's a point of information about this statement, a written statement. There is no written statement. It was never said this is an exception, that we're providing this bill because we're granting you an exception. There's no written statement about that. Mr. Griffith is the exact same person who repeatedly stated the homeless shelter is being closed by an outside agency. That was a false statement. His statement that there's a written explanation that an exception was granted is also false.
Like I said, I'm happy to read it to you, but it's classified, so I can't read it from the dais. Just ask me after the meeting, and I'll read it line by line. But getting back to this, is there a motion on the vote? Vice Mayor Davis.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we adopt 1B.
Councilmember Larson.
Second.
Seeing no further discussion, please vote.
The vote is 6-1. Councilmember Meyering dissenting. Motion carries.